What's up, everyone? So, first things first, that moment of silence for those victims in Atlanta is something that we all should have had. And this furthers the discussion that we all should be having that um, racial attacks are not just for blacks and Black Lives Matter to have as part of their history and their present and potentially their future without change. Um, I know that this madman said that he had sexual addiction issues, and that's what he was addressing while murdering these women. But the fact that a lot of them were Asian does bring up a whole nother set of questions, and it is part of like a history that I don't think that we as society look at a lot of the time. And there's a dehumanizing factor, first of all, about how he addressed this, but there's also a dehumanizing factor about how our society in general has depicted Asian women. Um, I think that there's the subservience that we look at, um, the the sex worker angle, because we all know Full Metal Jacket. We all know the sample that Two Live Crew used. With Me So Horny, Me Love You Long Time. There's stereotypes that I think give way that women are, especially Asian women, Asian women are somehow just there for the picking. When you talk about the military occupation in the Far East, in Asian countries, and the results of that, camp towns, sex workers popping up, and things like that, we're just familiar with that. They've made us familiar with that. The same way that we can say for a lot of groups that there's a stereotype that is adhered to them that allows for, in this case, violence to ensue against them, and somehow it be normalized. Um, there is the Page Act of 1865, which basically deemed Asian women as temptations, and I'm guessing to white men. So, because many men were unable to control their baser urges, much like this madman, then Asian women were to be held at fault, deemed to carry diseases. And I think we've also heard the anatomy, that Asian women's anatomy, genitalia, is different. I know I've heard that, and man, this is when I comparatively, think about the things that other groups go through. There's so many talks that we need to have, and hopefully this is one of those things where now we can start looking and saying what I've been saying is we're fighting the same bully. When things like this come up, Black Lives Matter and other groups need to be in support and push for stricter laws, because it protects us in the long run. And to the Asian community, you've been duped in a lot of cases that, yes, there's strife between you and the black community, with convenience stores in inner cities and things like that, but that's not everybody. And crime is just crime. Black people would have stolen out of their own, people's stores, or white people's stores, or, you've been duped by the stereotype, just like we've been duped that Asian women are all, madams, at whorehouses and, what have you. So it's a conversation, and it's a topic that we can all take the time to educate ourselves on. I'm unfamiliar with the Page Act of 1865, but I'm going to go read up more on it and learn more on it, and with that, hopefully be able to recognize and respect more. Not that I've ever disrespected, but respect more the plight that our Asian sisters go through. It's important. And beyond that, that we start looking at the attacks against the Asian American community as racially motivated. We've seen it with the detainment camps. We've seen it, I think, in the mid 80s. There was some sort of Japanese treaty, but the treatment has been unacceptable. But this is history. This is American history, and it's not just for one group to say we've suffered through. Maybe it's not slavery, maybe it's not a lot of things, but it's still something. And what's the quote? Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. So we have to address this, but we also must support each other. And this doesn't mean that we rise up against all white people. It means we rise up against a system that has indoctrinated a lot of people who have predominantly and historically been white to enjoy certain terroristic freedoms on other people and get away with it. So I say all that to say peace, love, unity, solidarity. Solidarity.